If you are a Spring Boot developer or a person who is looking to learn a Spring Boot, then these are the top 3 features every Java developer or every Spring Boot developer should know. So watch this video till the end. Let's take a look at the very first feature, that is auto configuration. Now if you are developing any application in the Spring Boot, then this is one of the important features which Spring Boot internally make use of for developing the applications and configuring the applications. Now this is one of the core, I would say, of Spring Boot. It is going to automatically detect in your application what are the dependencies you have in the class path, and it is going to configure everything for you. It is going to significantly reduce the amount of boilerplate code, like earlier in the Spring where you used to write the XML or the Java based configuration you had to write. So this is going to be eradicated or completely reduce those particular extra efforts which you are supposed to do in the Spring. So Spring Boot comes handy and it saves lot of time. Let's take an example. If you want to add a web app dependencies in your Spring Boot projects, so what Spring Boot will do, it will automatically configure the embedded server for you. It is going to configure the MVC for you and all the other necessary components which are required to run and this particular develop and run this particular application will be added over here. So you don't need to worry, you don't need to manually add those dispatcher servlet, or you need to manually deploy that application on the embedded or a different server beans. So all the everything will be taken care. It will work like out of the box and seamlessly it will deploy your application and run your application as well. So this is one important features which is very important, because internally Spring uses a lot of this and actually it will configure based on your class paths. Now let's take a use case where, let's say, you are building a simple REST API. Now before this auto configuration, what you had to do, you had to create the XML file, that is web.xml. You had to configure the dispatcher servlet. Also, you had to define multiple beans for the web servers. And then after everything this has been done, then you had to understand which view resolver to pick up and the different other components to return it. So this was very time consuming, also very error prone. Now in auto configuration in being placed with Spring Boot, you are going to simply add that particular one starter dependencies in your pom.xml, and Spring Boot class, there is one Spring Boot application class which you are going to create, that is, and you are going to annotate with @Spring Boot application and the REST controller annotation. Rest everything will be taken care. The Spring will handle all the configuration for you. It will focus, it will allow you to focus solely on your business logic instead of all the other boilerplate codes which you had to manually write in the Spring. Now based on this, the impact is, it was earlier very tedious, very repetitive things and the time consuming configuration. So any change or any addition of the new library, you had to extensively manually set up that things. It was always leading to configuration like an hell, and also there was many chances of error. Now after this auto configuration being coming in picture, your application development has become very fast. It has increased the developers productivity. Now developers can create and run the applications in minutes. So it is going to promote the consistency of the project structure, and also it is going to reduce the learning curve for the new developer who is joining a new team and a fresher as well. So this is quite important. Let's take at the second thing, that is starters. Now this is one important pom.xml features which is going to solve your problem of adding the dependencies, that to the compatible dependencies. Now starter, as a, if you see, it is one of the convenient as a dependencies descriptor that is going to bundle together all the common libraries which are required for certain functionality. Now, the purpose is to simplify your development dependency management by providing you one particular stop of shop of all everything being in one place for all the related dependencies and their version. So it will be handling everything related to those particular all the dependencies. Let's say you are adding Spring Boot Data JPA in a starter. Okay, so it will include not only the Spring Boot Data JPA, but it also includes Hibernate also. It will include the database connection pools and all the other related libraries which are required for application to start with the Spring Boot Data JPA. Now you'll get all the necessary dependencies to work with the JPA by just simply adding one line in the pom.xml. So that's the power of the starter dependency. So that is one of the great functionality which has been provided and helps the developer to work smartly. Let's discuss the use case. Now, whenever you want to implement a persistence layer, that is the data persistence layer. Now, prior to this particular starter dependency in place, what you have to do, you have to manually add the separate dependencies for the JPA, Hibernate separately, the database driver separately, like the connectors, and then the connection pool. Like if you wanted to add Hikari CP or something like that, then you had to manually add those and making sure that particular versions are also compatible. Also, this was quite fragile process where the version used to get a mismatch. It used to break your entire application. One you used to fix that and the other used to break up. So you had to always maintain that particular versions and also find that particular extra overhead to find those particular dependencies. Now by adding this particular starter dependencies, you are just trying to add this one dependency, that is starter data JPA, and the Spring Boot is going to handle all the transitive dependencies along with their versions. So you doesn't need to write anything, any other dependencies or libraries or versions. Everything will be handled internally by the Spring Boot. Now by adding this, the impact it has was greater. Now, before this, it was very complex dependence management. The developer had to spend hours of the time managing the dependencies. He had to resolve the conflicts. He has to ensure the version compatibility. Okay, it was sometime working in one environment, sometime not working in another environment. So, after this particular starter dependencies has been introduced, it has simplified the build configuration. It has improved the consistency across your servers. Starter ensures that the standard set of compatible libraries is used across your projects. It is going to reduce your configuration efforts, and also there is a maintenance going to be very easy. So that's the one major benefit. The third benefit or the third feature is actuator. So if you have not heard what actuator is about, actuator is one of the monitoring service, or it is going to give you a capability to manage and monitor your applications, which is going to be the production ready based. So it is going to expose certain series of HTTP endpoints that is going to help you provide certain insights about your applications. What is the internal state of your an application? Every internal information will be handed over to the user so that they can act accordingly and make the changes. Now let's take an example. You are trying to simply include the starter actuator dependencies in your pom.xml. Now by adding this, you are going to get an access to different endpoints, like health is there, which is going to show the health of your application status. Matrices is there, that is going to performance matrices, like what memory is used, what are the request timing and all other information. Then there is an info endpoints, which is going to display the custom application information which is there in the applications, so which are very specific to your applications, which you can define. So that's one of the important features of an actuator. Now let's discuss the use case. Let's say you are trying to monitor your application in the production environment. You have deployed a recent latest version in your production. Now prior to this, prior to introduction of actuator, it was very difficult to monitor your application. You had to manually integrate and configure certain third party monitoring libraries. You had to write the custom logic to expose certain matrices, health checkups, and other operational internal data. Now, being actuator in place, what you get an essential endpoints which are provided out of the box with a very minimal efforts, and you have to do no configuration at all. So you can simply integrate your application and try to monitor your systems along with the other tools like Prometheus, Grafana, which can actually ease your application data in a graphical visual way. Now the impact of this particular actuator is great. So before this particular actuator, there was very limited visibility. It was very complex thing to monitor the setup. It was very difficult to troubleshoot the issues in your live environment. So with an extensive custom logging, it was very difficult, and it was very difficult to monitor and log those things. So after this particular thing has been introduced, it has actually increased the operational excellence. It has actually provided you the real time visibility into your application's health, performance. Also, it is allowing the developer to quickly fix that issue, quickly find that issue and diagnose the issues so that they can debug the problem, also to ensure your application is running very smoothly. So this has reduced your downtime, and also it has improved the overall system reliability over here. So this is one of the biggest advantages when it comes to the actuator. I hope I was able to explain you the importance of these three features with respect to Spring Boot application. So if this video has given you some value, please give us a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Also, check out my channel page where you will find lot of Java, Spring Boot, Microservices, Kafka, and lot of videos on the interviews and the preparations which are asked in the real world interviews. So please watch out that and don't miss out the important videos.